The Recount released a video here, and I think it's an interesting video. They say, have you noticed Democrats are starting to campaign like Republicans? That's on purpose. After the overturning of Roe v. Wade, Democrats like Gavin Newsom have been stealing a page from the GOP playbook, but there's one line they still won't cross. Okay, so we're going to take a look at this. Now, just take note. They're saying that Democrats are starting to campaign like Republicans, because I know that everybody watching this is probably thinking, like, Democrats are governing like Republicans? Like, that's duh. That's a very common thing. We see that all the time. But they're using the word campaign. Campaigning and governing are separate, right? So, they do govern like Republic ever since, you guys know this. I don't need to go into the history of it. But from Bill Clinton and onwards, you've had this neoliberal corporate era where there's a general consensus, more deregulation, more privatization. These things are good. More free trade deals, things of that nature. So Democrats have been Republican light for quite a while. Now, Biden, in some minor ways, has broken with that tradition, like doing some student debt elimination, but generally speaking, he's perpetuated that idea. So Democrats have governed like diet Republicans for a while, but campaigning like them is something totally different. Because usually what we see is Republicans are very, very aggressive against Democrats and the left. They make their argument, and they're not interested in common ground, centrism, bipartisanship. But the Democrats have embraced for a very long time, as long as I can remember. Democrats have been all about triangulation, saying, hey, we're above the fray. We're just trying to find reasonable answers. We'll work with the right. We'll work with the left. We're not ideologues, bro. We're here for bipartisanship and centrism. So they've campaigned in a very, big tent kind of way, to say the least. Well, now that is starting to change. And so they're going to go through it here, give us some examples of that, and then I'll tell you my overall takeaway. So let's watch.
Don't look now, but Democrats have started campaigning like Republicans. There's a reason, and it tells us a lot about where we are in the 2022 midterms. For decades, the basic dynamics of most campaigns have been pretty set. Democrats have laid claim to diversity, equality, opportunity. Republicans have cornered the market on security, values, and freedom. But 2022 is scrambling that. After the overturning of Roe v. Wade and the success in Kansas of using libertarian messaging, many Democrats have taken a hard turn towards embracing the language of freedom.
Join us in California, where we still believe in freedom.
Freedom is worth fighting for.
The freedom to choose.
We should use the law to protect our freedom.
But there's something even bigger going on. This year, many Democrats are going on the offensive against not just Republican policies, but the idea of conservative America. Demonizing conservatism,
burn it all down politics of MAGA Republicans,
name-checking red states,
MAGA Republican Tiffany Smiley agrees with Texas law,
and galvanizing blue states' sense of identity.
Overturning protections here in Washington state.
Even for here in Rhode Island.
This ad from endangered Democratic Congressman Tom Malinowski is the perfect example. Not just claiming the mantle of freedom.
Freedom is why I approved this message.
But creating a boogeyman out of the right.
Certainly not the MAGA crowd.
And, most importantly, invoking the us versus them dynamic that Republicans have relied on for decades, but Democrats have mostly shied away from.
So, that's a good point. Now, the only thing I'd caution is, if you're going to do the us versus them thing, which is good politics a lot of the times, and Republicans have proven that, like, it works a lot, right? If you're going to do that, the us versus them needs to be the 99% versus the 1%. Occupy had it dead right. You can be as vicious as humanly possible against the elected Republican officials, but when it comes to the voters, you want to reach whoever is reachable. And look, maybe only 20% of them are reachable, right? But you want to craft arguments in a way where you hold your entire base and you can steal from their more moderate wing. So, I like the us versus them thing, but I like it 99% versus 1%, or the people versus the elites. And along with that, you can be vicious against the CEOs, the corporations, the billionaires, and the elected Republican politicians. Okay? That's how I would do that. Now, the freedom thing is actually very interesting. I'm going to talk more about this a little bit later, but it is true. If you stop and think about it, Democrats they don't run on freedom. They don't tout this idea that I embrace freedom, that's my thing. he's right that they more embrace, diversity, equality, fairness, things of that nature. And so now we're seeing a shift where, because of the overturning of Roe versus Wade, Democrats are like, hold on, I believe in freedom. You guys don't believe in freedom. You want big government and you want it to get involved in people's personal lives and make the decision for them. That's authoritarianism. I support freedom. And it's interesting because he's right, they've never run on this. But as somebody who's on the left and been on the left, I always felt like the core of my politics, to the extent I can extrapolate it from any one particular value, it's freedom. That's where I get my leftism stems from, a commitment to freedom. And so now it's like they're discovering, oh shit, this is a popular argument. The idea that you just leave that to the right for them to pretend like they support freedom is absurd. So it's a positive development.
It's what happens when they win.
When we vote, we win.
We win.
And wherever you stand, that's a huge development. For decades, liberals in blue states, especially one in particular, have been demonized by the right in a way that conservatives in red states simply have not by the left.
Liberal progressive agenda, which has been trying to turn us into California East.
Yeah, I hate this from Republicans. I mean, honestly, their language borders on flat out bigoted against anybody who disagrees with them, right? Like, even, shitty New York and shitty California, just demonizing millions and millions of people who live in these states and are normal people. And so I would not tell Democrats to copy this trick to say, gross, Texas or fucking Alabama, bro. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. But this is something gross GOP politics that has been going on for a while. But look, my guess is, if you were to do some sort of analysis on the candidates who really lean into this rhetoric and the ones who don't lean into this rhetoric on the right probably do better than the ones who are really all in on like demonizing literally everybody who disagrees with them in entire states who don't have their politics.
Arizona into California.
Ohio into New York.
Turn Richmond into San Francisco.
From California, New York, and Massachusetts.
For anyone who follows politics, this kind of thing is so normal, it's easy to forget that there's no equivalent on the left. Think about it. Susan Collins' challengers never ran ads saying she's beholden to Kentucky. Gretchen Whitmer never accused her opponents of trying to turn Michigan into Alabama. And there's a big reason why this is changing now. Culturally, the country has moved away from conservatives. In Clinton, Bush, and Obama's Americas, conservatives outnumbered liberals 2-1. It wasn't until 2019 that a majority of Democrats identified as liberals. Now, the gap is half of that. And in the past 20 years, the country has sprinted towards the liberal side on key issues like drug laws and sexual minorities. And that's trickled down to our behaviors as well. Feminist used to be a slur. Now it's popular. More people are going to college and getting tattoos, and fewer people are involved in organized religion. Dunkin' Donuts and 7-Eleven sell lattes and avocado toast. Basically, the liberals who were legitimately out of touch in the 90s are now culturally closer to the average voter than the conservatives who talk and campaign the same way as 30 years ago. Combine that.
So I think all that's true, and I always say when you go issue for issue, this is an area where the left is going to win. Legalizing marijuana, gay marriage, you name it, all those things. The only area where I'd caution is that they do sort of effectively get away with bashing the left for being quote unquote woke and like censorious, and that does land with the average voter, because we've seen polls on wokeness, this idea of like, hey, do you think people are too harsh to punish over bad jokes and shit like that? I'm paraphrasing the poll. It wasn't that specifically, but it was basically like, are people too hard on people's past? And basically the numbers were through the roof. Like, yeah, people are way too hard on people for past discretions, for offhanded comments and things of that nature. So he's right on all that stuff, but I would also add the one area culturally where the right has effectively bashed the left and Republicans have effectively bashed Democrats, this general issue of wokeness and censoriousness. Now, you guys know I've talked about it a million times. There's plenty of examples of right-wing political correctness, which, you could say, stand-in term for that could be right-wing wokeness, where they're like, they're censoring people and they're deplatforming people and they want to restrict speech and things of that nature. But certainly from a marketing perspective, the stuff that gets the most eyeballs and ears and the stuff that makes the most noise is when the right attacks the left for being too woke and too censorious. So that's just one caveat, an asterisk in the conversation about where Americans are now socially.
With Republicans' hard right turn, and it's suddenly possible for Democrats to make the same kind of identity-based appeals that Republicans have been doing for years. But there is still one area Democrats are not going. Republicans routinely ridicule not just liberal governance, but liberal people. This kind of talk is completely normalized for Republican politicians.
They want us to be just like California, right down to tofu and silicone and dyed hair.
It's unfathomable to think of Bernie Sanders mocking the way West Virginians talk or dress. Republicans have literally run ads mocking the way liberals talk and dress.
ISIS? They're overrated.
Try to imagine what would happen if a Democratic super PAC ran ads in a special election in Massachusetts mocking Southerners. There were literally dozens of instances of Donald Trump being openly biased against blue state residents. But one thing is clear. Republicans have been right about a certain truth. There is no coexisting between a lot of America anymore. One side has to win. And now, both sides are punching.
Yeah, so, look, on that last part, I sort of agree that Democrats shouldn't go after, individuals on the right and stereotype them, and because there is it's classist, right? There's a classist element of that. If you're doing like the typical redneck hillbilly voter with the, Trump shirt on and the American flag thing on the pickup truck, and it's gross. It's disgusting, and it's also sick when the right does it and they go after liberals, and like every single person who's on the left is like tofu eating, avocado toast eating, pink haired lesbian or some shit. Like it's cheap gutter politics, and I don't think that's all that effective. Now, but the main takeaway from this video is I like the newfound aggression that we're seeing among some candidates against right-wing politicians. I like that. And I would double down and triple down and quadruple down on this notion of actually we're the people who embrace freedom. It's something you've seen on this show for a very long time. Look, I want to legalize marijuana. I want to legalize, tax, and regulate drugs, or at the very least decriminalize the other drugs, because this is not a criminal issue. You shouldn't destroy somebody's life if they're selling a substance or taking a substance. That's their body. So I'm actually in favor of freedom on that. These politicians on the right who say they're in favor of freedom are all for the drug war. And many of them want to rededicate themselves to the drug war and lock up more people. So I'm for freedom on that front. I'm for freedom when it comes to choice. I support Roe versus Wade. Roe versus Wade is a perfectly moderate framework on abortion where you're allowed to ban it when it's late term and it gets a little sketchy, but early on it's a right. I support Roe versus Wade. I'm pro-freedom on that front. The right, many people on the right, are not even for exceptions for rape, incest, or even life of the mother. Just like Herschel Walker, who, by the way, paid for an abortion, he says no exceptions whatsoever. It's murder. So he's saying, I'm a murderer, and the woman I slept with is a murderer. This is what he's saying. So we support freedom on that front. They do not support freedom on that front. They just don't. So we need to embrace the language of freedom, and I love that because, look, even when it comes to economic stuff, there's a very simple way to think about this. Now, I want everybody to have economic security. I want everybody to have a fair shot. Are you free if you don't have a roof over your head? Are you free if you don't have health care? Are you free if you don't have some food in your belly? No, you're free to be in excruciating pain and die a sad, lonely death. You're free to have a miserable existence. Now, the right likes to say economic freedom is like anarcho-capitalism, where we're all beholden to the whims of a dictator, boss, or CEO. That is not freedom. True freedom is giving everybody a basic chance, having the bare minimums met, having a reasonable floor, and then you could say, you know what, it's a meritocracy, it's a race, it's on you. But you're going to have healthcare, you're going to have education, it's going to give you a fair shot, you're going to have a roof over your head. So after we meet those bare minimums, then I have no problem saying, you know what, it's all on you, go for it. But if you don't beat those bare minimums, if you don't meet those bare minimums, you're not actually free. You're free to be tortured, and you're free to die a sad, lonely, painful death. So my economic beliefs stem from freedom, from a belief in freedom, and my social beliefs stem from a belief in freedom. Live and let live as much as humanly possible. As long as you're not taking away the rights of others, hurting others, you get to do whatever you want. And so the more the left embraces this, the better we are. Because there's this caricature of the left. Like, they're all petty authoritarians. They want to control everything about your life. And nothing could be further from the truth. And now at least we're seeing, I love the rhetoric when it comes to abortion. Now the ads, hey, we believe in freedom, they don't believe in freedom. Expand that, man. Go further. Double down on the marijuana thing. Lean into it, that you're in favor of legalizing marijuana and the right is not in favor of legalizing marijuana. Lean into that. I see no reason not to lean into that. You know? So, anyway, there you have it. Democrats are getting a little bit more intelligent when it comes to campaigning. They're getting a little bit more aggressive. But look, they still need a hell of a lot of help, don't they? They really do. So, I know they're not paying attention to this, but hopefully they get some pointers from this pretty decent recount video. Alright guys, that is the show, y'all. I love y'all very much. Again, everybody check out. Katie Halper is going to be on Crystal Kyle and Friends. Check it out. You're going to want to hear it. She was just censored. She was just fired. This is from The Hill, the same company that Crystal and Sagar had big issues with, and they left them and did their own independent thing. If you want to join up, it's the link is in the video description box below to Substack. You pay $5 a month, you get every Crystal Kyle and Friends video, and you get it a day early. Everybody else can listen for free, but it comes out a day later, and it's just the audio version of the show. So definitely check that out. I'm excited for that conversation. Really want to get into it with Katie and learn all the details as to what was going on, because people don't know, man. People don't know the reality behind the scenes of these corporate entities, these media companies that, you know, really are kind of nefarious in a sense, you know? So want to learn all about that. Massive thank you, of course, to all the patrons of this show. You guys make it work. Because of you guys, I've never had to have a conversation with an advertiser. I don't know how many other people have been doing this for over a decade and have never talked to an advertiser. I wear that as a fucking badge of honor, which is why I brag about it all the time. And that was all made possible because of you guys, because you stepped in when Adpocalypse hit, and you said, you know what? We're not letting you get affected negatively, Kyle. We're all going to donate $5 a month or whatever it is, and we're going to keep you going. And man, that was an emotional time right there. I was just overcome with gratitude and joy when I saw how much you guys came through for me. And so, I mean, we still got that system going on today. We don't trust YouTube. At any point in time, they might pull the rug out from underneath us like they did before. They might just take away all your funding overnight, take away all the AdSense stuff overnight. Don't trust them. So that's why we got our Patreon. Thank you to everybody who supports it. And if you are not supporting it, please consider it. Link in the video description box below. And yeah, just the basic stuff. Everybody like and subscribe on YouTube. Trying to get to 1 million subs. Don't know if I'll ever fucking get there because YouTube is not kind to us in terms of the algorithm. So we got to try to beat it as much as possible. If you guys like the videos, comment, share them, blah, 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 all that fun stuff. Maybe eventually we'll get to 1 million subs. I'm right at the doorstep, but I've been on that doorstep for a hot minute, skis, and I don't foresee that changing, at least maybe when the next election rolls around, something like that will happen. I don't know, but it's hard to beat the algorithm. Anyway, I love you guys very much. Have a great rest of your day. Peace. Ever since Adpocalypse, when YouTube defunded all independent news and politics overnight, we haven't trusted them. We know they can pull the rug out from underneath us at any time. If you enjoy this content, please consider tipping $1 or $2 per month on the Secular Talk Patreon. Link in the video description box below. Thanks for your support.